See your emails.
Okay.
Okay, let me share my screen. Hello, everyone.
Hello, how are you?
I'm okay, and you? Hello, hello, hello. It's out of the way. Let's do the slideshow. Okay. So this to me, I call it a conversation, right? I feel like I know all of you already, so it's not like it's not like, oh, somebody that you don't know and you're coming into a room. So I want us to have that back and forth with respect to what you've seen in this regard, questions you want answered, and we're going to workshop, right? So some people have sent their CVs and their letters of intent in. So we'll use that as a workshop because I feel like people seeing it happen real life, right? You can take away from that and go work on your own documents. And I titled it Finding Your Farm Fit, right? Because as pharmacists, almost in another 6 months, right? So exciting. The idea here is for you to be able to take your career in your hands. And for those of you who are here today, I really think you're doing that, right? You're doing that to say, how can I best put my best self forward? How can I do this in a way that I get feedback at every point in the process? And so in this case, you all are coming here, and thinking, let me get as much as I can. Maybe before I begin the process, some of you have already started and you're going to be getting that feedback, right? So think about your modern day career as something that you're really going into uncharted territory. No matter what I tell you, no matter what any other person tells you in any other industry, right? You are the one who is going in for yourself. And so you want to think about it like you will drive a car, right? You are the person who's going to be driving this car to somewhere. And so you want to be able to look at yourself as, an agent, right? An agent of yourself in the sense that you're representing yourself. And so you want to be able to tell a story about your life, about your working life. And one of the ways to tell that story is to know all the threads that tie everything you do together and be able to present it in the best way possible, right? So you are the author of this career. So it's dependent on you to make sure that you have a good CV, a CV that is, will get a second look, a cover letter that will get a second look. And all of this that I'm saying, we'll see it when we begin to workshop the actual document, right? Because I always say to people, if you reading it, right, don't feel, so you here in the room, you're going to be the audience. If you look at this document and you don't see the need to get a second look, then you can be sure that the person that is being addressed to will probably not give it a second look, right? So some of these things are not, they are quite open, right? Just the way the document is will tell you if it's good enough or if it's something that needs work. And that's kind of what we have to be more practiced in doing, even for our own work, right? In terms of self-editing. And so what are some of the things that you can use as you go on into planning? One of the key things is to basically, when I talk about telling a story about your life, then you want to know what kind of, person you are, what your strengths are, right? What your strong strengths are, because that's what you want to put forward. And some of the best ways to do this, there's free material available online. The Department of Labor has this My Next Move, right? That's what that is called. It's an exploration tool, but I like it and I kind of recommend it to a lot of people because it helps you see that, okay, you're in the right area, right, for your strengths, so to speak. And it also gives you insight into, oh, okay, so this is why maybe I like to, make things on the weekend, right? Maybe I like to bake, I like to do this, I like to do that. Recognizing that those are all strengths. And there's a way you can tie all of those together, right? So for me, I feel like some of these websites help you just explore to say, what are my strengths so that I can best present them, right? So this is just in terms of searching, right? In terms of while you're still applying for the residencies and the fellowships, these are just places you could go and, I don't want to say play with, but get the idea of, okay, what are some of my strengths, right? And one thing that happens with this is if you're able to speak in these languages that are used in some of these descriptors, it really puts you at, it really, sets you apart, because the person that is hiring you knows that, okay, this person has done some work beforehand. So for instance, right, this is what the self-directed search will give you, right? It will kind of give you a summary code telling you which of your 6 different codes, right? There are 6 different areas where it really categorizes people to say, okay, for you as a person, these are the kinds of areas that you will thrive best in. So for example, right, this is mine as an example. So, social, right? A social person, it's not social like social media, but it just says that the person likes to work with people rather than things. So for instance, right, I may not do well in a mechanic's shop, right? That's literally what this is saying. And that's okay, I know this. This is why I'm here teaching, right? In that sense. So it kind of makes me more confident that I'm where I'm supposed to be, right? Investigative, it's mostly for people who are in the sciences. Enterprising just means that you can put things together, right? You can bring the ideas together and make new things out of them. These terms are terms that you can then use when you're presenting your story in terms of your CV or your cover letter. So this was what I was talking about, social, that people who are social, right? These are some of the things that they like to do, okay? So now how do you that present yourself? Recognize that the resume is a marketing tool, because everyone is so busy. 2 minutes, 2 minutes is even too long, right? They say the first 20 seconds. If somebody sees your resume, it should bring something up to life to say, okay, why is this person different from the thousands of people that are applying for the internships and the fellowships and all of that, right? So recognize that that's what it is. And so in order to make it more attractive, right, because that's what marketing is. Marketing is basically saying, pick me out of the thousands of, things that are out there, pick me, right? So what are the things you need to think about? And sometimes, you may say, well, this is not that important. And you may be right, but recognize that you are not there at that point to tell the person what is important or not. So the idea is, how do you then make it so that they get to call you in person, right? Because you know that the layers of interviewing have really lengthened over time. Now you get to do a lot of artificial intelligence before you even see anybody. So how is it that the artificial intelligence part can pick up those things, right? And this is kind of what we want to talk about. So you want to make sure that you have the right font, right? Many people will default to Microsoft Word's Calibri, right? Calibri 11, Office, Times New Roman, and there's nothing wrong with those. But remember, we're talking about standing apart. If thousands of people are using Calibri, the minute I see any other font that is different, my eyes will recognize that, because it's just a cognitive thing, right? My eyes are going to say, oh, okay, this is different. Even if it says exactly the same thing, the fact that it's a little bit different, right, will make me pay a bit more attention. And attention is the currency. So you want to think about fonts, right? What is the right font that you want to use? And, with the fonts, you have the serif and the sans serif, right? So serif would be those fonts that have little dots at the end of the E's and the R's, right? The kinds of things that we learn in cursive writing will be your serif. And sans serif means without, right? So sans is without. So sans serif is the clean ones. So I'm using a sans serif font right here in this PowerPoint. So you want to look at it. And the thing is, you can always select or copy and change the font and see for yourself how it even looks, right? Those little things can make a difference. The length. Your resume should not be more than 2 pages at the beginning when you're, trying to send it out to be able to be tracked for the applicant tracking system, the ATS, right? So you don't want a resume that has everything you've ever done. You should just highlight the key things. And then the keywords important because of what role are you applying for, right? You can't use the same resume for everything. So based on the keywords that are in the application, you can then reformat your resume, right? So at least highlight some of those keywords for the application that you're going for. And then this idea of leanness, right? Lean, tight, powerful means that it's stating exactly what you want it to state. It's not full of filler words. Like we'll see some of those filler words in a bit. And then distinct, commanding attention. Okay? So some of the things that you want to think about in terms of the font, right? It's a personal choice. Again, I do not ever use Calibri. I just don't like it. It's just a personal choice, right? So you can change your normal template in Microsoft Word. So you're not stuck with that default font if you want to, right? But again, it's a personal style if you want to use serif versus sans serif, but recognize what we're saying about having it be different. Like different in the sense that it draws attention, not different of some wild thing that is out there. And then what you want to do when you're trying to write your letter of intent or your CV or your cover letter is to create a result-based summary, right? Something that you did while you were working and what came out of it. Now, you may not know the overall result, but within the sphere of what you did, what do you think the outcome was, right? You can present that. And then you can use it to create what I call an area of expertise, right? Obviously, you and I know, okay, well, I cannot claim, that level of expertise. But for the work you did within the APIs, right, within that module, if you were able to finish a project, then you were a little expert in that project. You want to highlight it, right? So the other thing that I say to people is bring professional experience to the front, right? Separate that from volunteer experience. And it's critical because your volunteer experience is part of the things that tie your work together, right? The threads that tie your work together. And so you want to highlight it because somebody may look at that resume and it's the volunteer thing that they pick out and want to talk to you about, right? Because all of us have the same degree, but a person might be volunteering with US aid, or they might have gone to Afghanistan or something. And that kind of, it's interesting. And someone says, oh, let's know more about this, right? So be able to have separate sections for those and don't discount any volunteer experience, right? Don't discount it because some people don't put it. They say, oh, it's a professional CV, so I don't need to put volunteer experience. Working with dogs, cats, like anything that you've done, be able to highlight that. And, it could be a conversation starter. One thing that is kind of, plus or minus is this idea of at your level, right? We're talking about P4s. Your EPs at this point, right? In as much as they look good on the CV, they may not really matter if you are looking for space, right? If you have enough space, you can put it at the bottom, but it shouldn't be taking away critical space from the areas that you want people to focus on. Right? You should not be taking away critical space. Because guess what? You've had all these APIs that have kind of overshadowed the EPs, right? But sometimes we kind of just put these bullet points in without really thinking about it. And that's what may make a resume get to 3-4 pages, right? And then in some cases, you've put the information that is not relevant up front. And so the person now does not even bother looking down where the most important information might be, right? If you have research experience, you can consolidate all of them into a content area. And what do I mean by content area? You could have a content area that is, you looked at adverse drug events, right? So let's say last year we had workshop pharmacovigilance, right? And that person had done quite a bit of work in that area. So as opposed to separating them into discrete things, you could say, okay, this is my research experience in adverse drug events reporting, right? So the people who are going in for health outcomes, health economics, you can say, this is my research experience in health, outcomes or health economics, and then put the summary of everything you did in that API in that one content area, as opposed to separating them. What that does is directly, it lets a person know that you're able to consolidate material, which is something that we need to do as pharmacists, right? You read all these things from all these different monographs of things, and you bring all that information together. Imagine you doing the same for your CV, right? So that's what I mean by content area. And then you make it ATS ready. ATS ready is this idea of making sure that the keywords are showing up somewhere in the CV, right? So you can generate keywords from a website called JobScan, right? Jobscan.io. I think I have the link in this presentation, right? So you can generate keywords from there if you feel like, okay, I'm kind of lacking in keywords or I don't know what to use, right? That website would help you. The other thing that I want to talk about, which I haven't seen much, right, for the people that sent me theirs, and I think you want to consider that it's this idea of what you call a value proposition statement, right? And value proposition statement is what are you bringing to the table? That's your VPS. So normally people will just say objective, right? That's kind of what they'll say, objective. And that's fine, but then your objective again would be the same as every other person who's looking for a job, right? I am looking for a job as an example, right? You know what I mean? Like, even if I'm not looking, I'm looking, so to speak. I'm just saying that everybody is looking for a job. And so how do you then say you're looking for a job, right? So it's kind of how do you present all the things that you have right now, right? Again, being aware of the fact that you are a family candidate, so it's not likely, except you had a first career before this, and this is your second career. And it may not be, even with that, it may not be likely that it's directly related. So you may not have all of this like wealth of expertise and experience. And that's okay. I think you see when we're writing the cover letter that no one is expecting you to, you know, fabricate things, right? You state where you are, but you have to state it in a compelling manner. Right? That's kind of the idea. So this was what somebody had last year, right? Seeking a pharmacy position in a reputable pharmaceutical company where they can contribute to the success of the team, right? So now there's nothing intrinsically wrong with this, but it's like, okay, what type of position, right? If I saw this, I don't know what type of position you're looking for. Any company is gonna have thousands, literally, of positions that a pharmacist could work in, right? And which pharmaceutical company. So this is an idea now, right? Which pharmaceutical company? So when you say the term reputable, are you saying some are not reputable, right? So you see what words can do. Again, you know, quite generic, right? So if we take that away and we try to rephrase this in a certain manner, right? Let's see. Okay. So something you could say is this person spoke multiple languages, right? And so the idea is right now, that is a key trait or skill that will make you stand apart, right? The fact that you can speak multiple languages, because, you know, many of these organizations are global, right? They're global, they work, they're in different continents. And so the fact that you're able to speak multiple languages, you want to highlight that, right? So this is an idea of how you can rewrite that for a value proposition, right? So the high performing was just an adjective that I picked. There are multiple adjectives that you can use, and we'll see some examples of those. So you say, okay, high performing, you know, doctor of pharmacy graduates, right? Recognizing that you just graduated. And these were the things that you got direct skills in doing your APIs, because the APIs are experiential. So I would expect that you would have some skills in doing X, Y, Z. Now with the APIs, you have many skills, but you're just picking those that are relevant to the exact position that you want to go for, right? So that's why I don't have anything there. It's doing X, Y, Z, right? So let's say doing your APIs, who here has done APIs, a lot of APIs in the same area? Who? Does anyone? So who has done maybe a lot of institutional, a lot of acute care, right? Who here has done that? Or you've had varied, okay, Timothy, what then would you say would be your skills now?
I would say like medication reconciliation.
Okay.
Like basically like talking about drug formularies.
Okay.
Drug.
So drug formulary management, right? That is what that is. What else?
And pharmacotherapeutics.
Okay, but pharmacotherapeutics is really broad. So how do you break that down?
Um, I would say critical or emergency care, emergency
Okay,
medicine, pharmacotherapy,
okay.
or is that still broad?
It's still broad, but it's better than just saying pharmacotherapy, right? So, but then if you were not going for positions in critical and emergency, what if you were going for acute care or ambulatory? What would you then say?
Hmm.
So something to think about. I didn't mean to put you on the on the spot, right? But these are the ideas. When you say skilled in doing X, Y, Z. So
Yeah.
all of you on the call, think about what the X, Y, Z would be for you in relation to the area that you want to directly apply for right now, right? Recognizing that all of this can change. X, Y, Z is not static. It can change, right? And
Mhm.
then this question of matrix environment becomes a critical one because you see that a lot in a lot of the applications. And I always say, remember that a matrix environment is just saying you're reporting to more than one person, right? And while you're on APIs, that's kind of, you are in a semi-matrix environment, right? Because you're reporting to your clinical people, you're reporting to experiential, and you may be reporting to a third person, right? And all of these people have a role in your development. And so that's the idea of the matrix, right? That you have more than two people that you're reporting to in the course of doing your work. And so if you put it here and somebody asks you to explain, and you explain what I'm saying now, right? They know then that you understand the concept of matrix. You may not be working in an organizational matrix the way that the company will have it, but it shows that you totally understand what that is and how you're able to give each person the type of reporting that they want to, right, in terms of outcomes.
I
And
have a
then you can say, yes.
Dr. Tito. So for like earlier, for the question earlier, would it be better if I say, let's say, cardiopulmonary pharmacotherapy? That would be more specific,
Yeah,
or infectious disease.
more, very much specific, right? If you were going into a role that was in acute and ambulatory, where the person knows, okay, we're bringing in somebody who's going to be interested in cardiopulmonary, right? That's kind of, yeah. So that would be much more specific.
Right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So now you can say currently prepared to take on roles in your area of interest, whatever that may be. Or then you can, this is where you can then put this thing that was at the beginning, right? Where we said, let's track that out and try a new one. You can then say currently seeking roles in XYZ, right? But what the difference between this and the first one is that you've shown your value, you've shown all the skills that you have, and the fact that you can work in a complex environment before you then say, I'm prepared, right, to take on roles in here, or I'm currently seeking roles in, XYZ company. So any questions so far? Questions? So other adjectives, right, that you could use: dynamic, creative, dependable. All of these are good enough, right, in terms of just being able to say, okay, this person is not just putting the general, neutral statement out there, right? So these are, obviously there way more than this, but these are just some of the examples that I have for this. So some keywords, right? The keywords, again, this was for a pharmacovigilance position, but you can see, right, the person did the drug. All of these keywords were picked from the person's CV. It was not made up. This person submitted their CV, and these were the things that kind of came up, right, from all the work that they had done. And I remember them saying, oh my goodness, like I didn't even know, right, that all of this work I did could be rewritten this way. And think about it, even though we're talking about pharmacovigilance right now as an example, right? All of you probably have this patient advocacy and education, right? The fact that you will be teaching people about their medications and all of that, right? This then becomes a skill that you have. All of you have project presentation skills, right? You have drug information review and reporting as an example. But like Timothy said, right, if you are going for another type of position, then you put that med reconciliation. as a key skill, right? Or as a keyword, depending obviously on the job description, right? Because the job description had the things that they were looking for. Then based on the person's CV, it's like, okay, these are the key things that are related. This becomes like the bridge that that takes your CV to the description of the job, right? That you see online. Okay. So this is the job scan, right? So all of you right now can go to this website and put in your current resume, put in a job description that you are looking for, right? To go for. And it will give you, if it matches, it will tell you what the percent match is for your description, for your job, your resume and the job. And then it will kind of give you like comments, right? Kind of key things to look out for. So the one thing with this is you can do this multiple times, right? So when it gives you that first, when it, throws out the first result, it may tell you 40% match and then tell you these are the things you need to do to match it, higher, right? So you could do some of those things and try it again. But typically, because we're going for some of these positions that are, like in some of our cases, fellowship, all of that, the 40% match can be just fine, right? As long as you've hit some of the keywords, but recognize that readiness will be per job or job description. You will need a job description. You can't put it in as a generic document, right? Because it's trying to say how well does what you're putting in match to what the job says. So now let's look at the cover letter, right? Or the letter of intent. With these letters, right, you always want to think about the 6 C's of communication. Okay? And I don't see that any one of us does not hit it, but we want to always remember. The courtesy is, who are you writing the letter to, right? So you want to try, if you can, find out the name of the hiring manager. Sometimes it may not be, maybe a panel, right? So fellowship panel, it may be a group, right? That is like fellowship committee, something like that. So in that case, you address to those. But if you're able to find out the name of the person that is hiring, it gives you an edge. But obviously, you can say their hiring manager, right? Clarity, very critical, right? What are you applying for? People forget that. You won't believe it. They will forget. They will just send in a generic letter and not remember to be clear about the intent, right? Remember, it's a letter of intent. What is that intent? You cannot write that whole letter without remembering that you are applying for a fellowship in XYZ, right? At the beginning, you should have clarity. The person reading it should know, okay, this application is for this before they continue reading on. Because if they don't see that, then, you might say, well, this is not for me, right? And then they toss it to the side. Conciseness. You don't want to use 2 words, right, where one will do. And obviously, what the lengthy word does is that it makes your thing longer. And a cover letter, at most 2 pages, at most. Like, even when I say 2 pages, is that a little of it spills into the second page. It should not go beyond half of the second page, if anything, right? And then coherence. You want a flow. You don't just like write one paragraph here, write another one. There should be a logical flow to what you're writing. And then correctness, right? This is where many people get focused on, as opposed to not noticing the other things as well. Correctness is, the grammar, right? The grammar, the editing, the things that the Microsoft spelling, tools and grammar can do for you, right? So make sure that all the information you have in the letter is correct and is easily, what's the word? They can match the information that you have in there, right? Essentially, basically saying, don't make up things, right? In terms of projects, experiences, and all that. I don't expect that anybody will do that, but it can, it happens, right? You see, it happens. Let's just put it that way. And sometimes this thing can come back and bite people. And then complete, right? You want to end the letter appropriately. Okay. So these are the, generally, if you remember all of this when writing anything, right? Most importantly for things like this that are career defining. But if you remember this, you know that, at least my letter is a decent one. Okay. So now it's time for the practice and feedback, right? So I had asked that people should send in their things, and some people sent in. We're not going to be able to do everybody's, but let's see how far we can go, right, for the people that sent in. Any questions so far? None? Okay. I have to make sure I'm sharing the right documents. Okay. So I'll quickly go over this one. This was for a internship, right? Summer internship. And so you see that I have certain things here, right? And everyone can use this. So I did some things before I came into the room, so that we're kind of saving time. So normally cover letters don't need the header and footer section, right? Your name and address should be in block format in the main section. So this is typically how you do it. And now I'll tell you, this is where my, elementary and secondary education comes into play, because I do the British style. I write, what's the word? Write, justify my name, address, and date, right? You can do that. So, but here everything should be flushed to the left, right? Name, address, date, and then the title or name of recipient, and then the company, right? Again, you follow all the rules of grammar, right? Make the proper nouns, right? You make them sentence case and all that, and make sure that that's clean, right? That's what I mean by sometimes the correctness. Like in this case, you can see the health plaza was like a small h, but it's an address. So you have to make sure that it has, the capital letters starting the first word, so to speak. So then you have to then use your, dear hiring manager, since we don't know who this is, and then your subject line, right? You want to always have what this letter is about, right? So now this is what the person had. This is exactly what they had. And I want you to quickly read this. Let's give it a read, just 1 minute, and tell me probably how you think that this can be improved, right? How do you think this can be improved? Because remember, it's a practice workshop. So let's say you were the one trying to write this. How would you improve it? Remember what we had said about the flow, like the logical flow and all of that, and the coherence. How would you improve this?
I mean, just from reading the first paragraph, there's like 5 sentences. That's one before the first period.
Okay. Okay. So that's really lengthy, right? It's kind of, this is what you call run-on sentences, right? It's just like information and no punctual, in terms of punctuation and all that. There's nothing, like she said. What else?
I believe the skill set could have all been gone in the second paragraph. And when the person started, initially it should be just why.
Okay.
And then next paragraph, what makes them a good candidate? It should all flow there better, because it seems like it's a little bit over the place right now.
Okay. Okay. So now, all of you have said like very critical things, right? And I'm hoping everybody's listening. However, you can write cover letters in two directions. You can come from you as a candidate in terms of what you're bringing, but you can also come from the organization, right? Recognize that we all want to be, we all want to see good words about ourselves, right? So I've not seen anywhere where it's kind of, this organization has been lifted up, if you know what I mean. Like they haven't written from the organization's point of view in any way. And so this is something you want to think about. And it's easy to do that, right? Go read up about the organization, know what their mission and vision is, know what sets them apart, right? If they're a Fortune 500, these are the kinds of things you want to put in the letter, right? To say, part of your, one day you looked at the S&P 500. I'm just making up things now, but just as an example, right? You looked at the S&P 500 and you've always wanted to work for those organizations. Now you're a pharmacist and you're looking forward to working for this organization, right? And that simple thing lets a person know, okay, this person is tracking my organization on the S&P index, right? Something like that. Obviously, this would be for people who are going into the global strategy and marketing and all of that. But those of us who concern ourselves more with pharmacotherapy, but that's kind of an idea, right? So one of the ways that this letter, right, was redone, and I'll show you, then I'll pull up the other one and we can also look at it. Okay, so because another thing is what you may be so passionate about something, but how relevant is it to the person, right? So in this case, I'm looking at this letter, it says, okay, malaria, but Novartis in the US, malaria may not be it may not be a critical area for them, right? And so in that case, it's like, okay, not to say, people remember stories. So there's a way you can tie this story in. So it's not saying take away this reference to malaria or whatever, but how do you tie it in a way that it becomes more interesting, right? So give me 1 second and I'll share like an edited version of this to kind of see, and then you all will tell me what you think about this new version, right, compared to this one. And we can do a compare documents. So give me 1 second, let me stop sharing this one. So this would be like a revised version of the same letter, right? So now you can read this and tell me, and would have the other, I'll pull up a compare document and we can look at it, right? So again, it's not like you're like Xing out that whole letter, right? There were certain sections that were really good, but like Bushara had said, she had said something critical that you bring in, I think you said the purpose, right, to the second paragraph before other things, and then take some other things down. And that's, literally the kind of idea here, right? You say, remember the courtesy part and the clarity. Directly, you're writing to express your interest where you are right now, right? It's a summer internship, so no one expects that you would have graduated. And then, okay, maybe dual degree would make them take a look up and say, okay, this person is getting a Master of Health Sciences in Regulatory Science, so it's going to be important to me, right? So you've brought up the most important things. Then you talk about your interest in the organization. And this I took from Novati's website. I just went there, I'm like, what do they have currently as their mission and vision, right? Says Novartis, their thing is to reimagine medicine. Okay, so you think about things like this. Last year was Osuka, and Osuka, talks about, it's a Japanese company, so they talk about their ikigai, right? The Japanese principles. You just find a way to bring those into the letter, right? To show that, okay, I've read about this company and what they do, right? And then be able to tie it to your own mission and vision as an individual, okay? So this person had gotten the Novati Scholarship, right, in 2019, which is critical because, Novartis wants to know that they're doing good, right? And you can see how, that was highlighted, that you say, okay, the company, this is like corporate social responsibility for them. And CSR is a big thing now that organizations are really going after, right? So the fact that this is a scholarship recipient now writing back to say, I want to work for your organization, right? Just because you contributed to me and I want to contribute back. And so you have that, not necessarily a quid pro quo, but that idea, right? And so this person will probably rise to the top of their candidates to say, oh, this person who got a scholarship, right? There must be something that they have that we may now want to focus on, right? Because in the first letter, the person had basically hidden the fact. They just said it in passing. But recognize that this may become the key now for them picking you out of a pile of candidates that you received the award. And it has nothing to do with the price. It may have been a $1,000 scholarship. I don't want to say who cares, but it's not the value in that sense, but it's the idea that you're tying in this thing that the company has done for you as one of the reasons why you do that. I don't remember the name of the Novati Scholarship, but that's just why it's a state purpose here. So think about, for all of you, right? Is there anything you've done along the way or you've experienced that ties your love for working for this organization with something that they do as an organization, right? In the broader sphere. Because organizations, yes, they make medicines, but then there are other things that they do to keep their footprint, right, in our minds. So don't forget about those. Don't focus just on the medicine part, right? That's what this was. And then you can talk about what your background is and then talk about, yourself at the end and then, wrap it up, right? That idea of wrapping it up. And then you have to give an email, right? Email, the person that sent that letter didn't have it, right? You have to give your email because you're still a student, you put your student email. Then you can say through other means, right? Other means of communicating, LinkedIn profile. But you saying, reach me through my LinkedIn profile, it has some element of hubris to it, like you don't have any other way of contact. However, I can recognize why this person did this, because the first letter they had their information in the header section, right? So the idea is you probably have seen the information. But if we're saying take out that header section, then you have to put that information directly in the letter. And then if we went back to the other one, right, ending it with a business ending, right? Warm regards is not a business ending. Business endings will be sincerely, right? Yours truly. There's some standard business endings, right? Warm regards, best wishes, that's for you and I, right? When you're writing to me. But if you're writing for this kind of thing, you want to make sure you're using a business ending, right? So that's what I was talking about. That's the 6 C's. People forget these things and they just kind of end the letter the way they would end anything that you're writing to your colleagues, right? So always remember to use anyone, yours truly, yours sincerely. Those are some ones that you can never go wrong with, right? So that's one. Let's look at the second. Any questions so far? Because I realize I'm kind of just speeding through this. So let me stop a bit. Any questions? Let me go back to the original letter, right? I think I had, yeah. So this was me saying you need proper business letter ending, right? And then you put your name and your digital signature, right? So now with Microsoft Word, you can go here and draw. There's no excuse for you not to be able to put in a signature. You can do the same thing in Adobe as well. right? So that just kind of gives it a more, showing that it's coming from a person, right? And not this idea of, just any bot sending it. So make sure you have your digital signature. Phone number, I put a, question mark here, putting it here, because you can take the phone number and bring it to the part where you're talking about reaching me, right? And then, yeah. Any questions? So all of this, right, materials, I think will be sent to those of you who registered, but recognize that these are people's letters. So just know what you're doing with it. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
I feel like I already know the answer, but for the letters of intent, like let's say for fellowship and residencies, it should be, how different should it be for each one? For each
So depending on the program, right? Because, that's, if you're going through a program portal, then it's just the one letter you need. You just want to make it more broad, right? So this assumes you're going to specific companies, but with fellowships and those, so like, let's say the Rutgers, right? They have one program portal that you're applying for, and then they'll pick you and put you in different. So for that, we're going to look at one that, addresses that in a minute.
Okay,
For that, you're not going to be able to do all of these company specific missions that we are talking about. But if within the program portal, the company that you want to go for, you can add that as well, right? You can add that in the letter, right?
That's good. I was gonna ask that too, if you only have specific ones you're looking.
Okay, let's look at the next one. Okay, so this is one, right? This is another one. And those of you who you'll be familiar with this, right? Dr. Byron has been around forever, I feel. So this is one going through the industry fellowship program, right? So this on first hand, right, is a, what do you call it? Is a very good letter, I have to say. It's quite a good letter, right? Remember, they put the courtesy, right? Wrote their interest or the reason for the letter, and then went on to talk about the different things that they've done. But now, if you read through this letter and be thinking about the 6 C's of communication, what is one thing that you might want to give feedback on for the person that wrote this letter?
The length of it.
Okay. So length ties into what? Which of the C's?
Like the concise, I think.
Conciseness. Okay. Yeah. Okay. What else? What else? If I have track changes on, so I'll put track changes on so we can walk directly in this one, right? What else?
Maybe in the second paragraph, I see they mention the MBA. Maybe they could have mentioned that a little earlier.
Okay, give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. They could have mentioned that earlier, right? I agree with you. Okay.
Maybe for the letter where it says FDU, write out the full name of the school.
Okay. Yeah, at the beginning. But remember, they have it here. So they've done the right thing, completing my graduate studies at Fairleigh Dickinson and put FDU in parentheses, right?
Going off of that really quick, do we
Yes.
always need, should we always include, like, they didn't really say School of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, should we always include that, like, in that paragraph, in that first paragraph? Or
No,
is that
because
completely
your degree is going to come from Fairleigh Dickinson
Fairleigh
University.
Dickinson?
Yeah, so
Okay.
if you're looking for space, you may not necessarily need to write out FDU SO PHS, right?
Okay.
Yes, I mean, it's good practice, but if you need word count, right? So that's something I need to say, you have to adhere to word count, right? So that's part of the correctness and the completeness. If the thing says 650 words, you cannot have 651, right? It just makes you now a person who doesn't follow directions. That's simply what that does. So
Right.
now, okay. So key thing here, we have about 6 minutes to work on this letter. Adjectives and adverbs, sometimes you don't need them in that sense, right? Because it's not adding anything. And that's that idea of, verbosity. You don't want all these words, if you don't need them, right? So in this case, if this were me, I would take this out, right? I'm writing to express my interest in this. So while completing my graduate studies, right, I have garnered. So garnered is this. So one thing you need to do right here, right now, this thing here is your thesaurus, right? So let's see. So it's telling me the words for sincere. I don't want sincere, I want garnered. So let's go to garnered, right? So what this does, it helps you know that sometimes some words may not fit, right? So garnered is this idea of gathered, acquisition, earned, right? Collected, harvested, stored. So then it will not be the best fit here, right? In this case, you will say developed. That's basically what it is, right? You developed an interest in advancing your career within the industry, right? And so let's look at kin, right? Kin is nice, but again, is this idea of, are you just using words just for the sake of it, right? So you can see it has this like strong, intense, sharpened, sensitive, dependent, right? So here, profound, right? Strong interest, you can do that, right? So you say, we're completing, and it's currently, or it happened in the past, right? So developed a keen interest, you can say strong in advancing my career within the pharmaceutical industry, right? Having the opportunity to immerse myself in this environment. What environment? Right? What is the environment? So I'll put a question mark here and say, what environment? You kind of need to clarify this. Over the past year, right? Are you talking about the Fairleigh Dickinson, or you're talking about graduate studies, right? So it's kind of not very clear here. Over the past year has only bolstered my passion to contribute to the ever-growing field of industrial pharmacy. Again, I'll put a question here because industrial pharmacy, right? It's a field, but it has so many areas. So what area of the industry are you talking about? You can specifically say that. So you say witnessing their persistent work ethic and interprofessional collaboration of who? See, I'm not clear who that is just from reading this. So again, I'll put a question mark there, right? So that the person thinks about who they're talking about. I'm confident that this is the ideal route for me to cultivate, nurture, and develop professionally as a pharmacist. So it should be the other direction in terms of the subject, object, verb. You say, I believe this is the ideal route for me, right, to be able to be nurtured and developed professionally, that kind of thing. So you kind of put it in the other direction. Okay. So throughout my studies at FDU, remember you said at the beginning here that the person said, while completing my studies, so it's kind of they're repeating the same thing. Okay, so gained a wealth of clinical knowledge, but clinical and pharmaceutical sciences, those two things are two different branches of pharmacy. Right? So you can say wealth of knowledge in clinical and pharmaceutical sciences, right? That, have helped me understand various, or from then you put the range of it. But remember, it's pharmaceutical and then clinical. Those are two different branches of the pharmacy sciences. Right? Okay, so this is good. Wanting to increase my, this should be knowledge, right? My knowledge, not only from a clinical perspective, but from a business standpoint. I obtained, right? Or I will obtain. Have you obtained or yet to obtain? We need to know that, right? I went on to obtain or will obtain my master's in business administration. Again, you say while working with faculty in both fields. What fields? See, what fields? Not very clear. I have had the ability to develop skills both as a clinician and as a business strategist. That's really good, right? I will not touch this sentence for anything, but this particular part has to be clarified, right? What faculty? Is it the faculty in pharmacy and business administration, right? Or is it the faculty in pharmaceutical sciences and business administration? It's not very clear, right? So you can write it out, say while working with faculty in both pharmacy and the business administration, right? That's not too lengthy. It's very clear who you're talking about. I have the ability to develop skills both as a clinician and business strategist. I've become adept at doing this, right? This is really good too. And then now you say undertaking the responsibilities that this knowledge bestowed upon me has helped sharpen my leadership into professional whatever. We don't know what those responsibilities are, right? And what knowledge bestowed upon you, okay? So undertaking responsibilities in XYZ, it may be in business strategy or marketing or whatever you did, which I think this is where the API, skills come in, right? So if you did your APIs in health economics and outcomes or whatever, you can say that undertaking responsibility, some of the responsibilities encompassing these areas in health economics, this or in XYZ, right, has helped sharpen leadership, interprofessional and interpersonal skills. And you talk about your master's degree giving you the advantage to gain in-depth understanding of clinical subjects, strengthen proficiency in different medical settings, and apply my business acumen to maximize the value of products commercially. But then you said your business degree in biomedical sciences, right? So when you talk about applying business acumen, that doesn't tie with that first part of the sentence. Right? So you keep the biomedical sciences to biomedical outcomes and keep the business acumen to the MBA outcomes. Okay? And that's what you see here, being able to intertwine the two different but synergistic, right? That's good, has become a passion of mine as I continue in my professional development efforts, right? So I'll take this out because you're not using them to tailor your career ambitions, right? As you continue your professional development efforts. So that's kind of an ongoing thing. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so this is where, right, you kind of almost emphasize on these first things in the beginning. Okay. So again, I think I saw synergistic, symbiotic, right? Yeah. So this is good. And now you're saying during your 10-week rotation, you've acquired hands-on experience, right? So you can see how it's like this part should have come after this, right? Because after I read this, now I'm understanding what you mean by undertaking the responsibilities that the knowledge confers on you, right? So you can end it here, bring all of this here to the next paragraph, and then separate this into a third paragraph, right? Into a separate paragraph. Yeah. Well, right on time. But like I said, this letter was, it came almost, complete. So these are just a few things that the person can use to highlight it. But this is a good letter, right? And that shows the level I think that the person is at, right, in their career, as opposed to the other one that was more of an internship application. Yeah. Any questions?
So I guess that means, Dr. Otito, they're all going to have fabulous letters at the
Yep.
end of this session. Yes, I can't see them smiling behind their. Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. So for those of you who took the time to attend the session, I think it was very informative. I hope you received the information well and will use it as you prepare your letters, which will be pretty much quite a few of them coming up, because this is the time of year where all of you are, taking advantage of securing a possible residency or a fellowship opportunity. So again, Dr. Otito, thank you. Dr. Patel, thank you as well. And Dr. Han. And
Yeah.
in the event the students want to follow up after the session with you, could they just email you directly and set up some time, one-on-one if need be? Yes?
Yeah. We can give that to the people who attended, right?
Yes, I can. I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
No, I'm even saying this one-on-one, right? That's the benefit they get for coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Justin in Student Affairs will be posting this for students who didn't attend, for their information, but for additional assistance, because you folks took the time and the opportunity, you seized it. Again, Dr. Otito said, you're welcome to follow up with them. Okay. All right. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. And again, I wish you all good luck in whatever opportunity you're pursuing. Okay. All right. Have a great afternoon.
Yeah.
Hi.
Thank you so much, Dr. O. That was very informative. Thank you.
You're welcome.